was into our July meeting on my Google phone, video,
All right,
audio.
should be all set.
I was amazed.
Good.
Yes.
All
I
right.
picked up our July meeting,
Oh,
listening into
yeah.
it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I will call our meeting to order here. It is 6:34. Make a roll call. Glenn Underwood,
Here.
Jack Donovan,
Here.
Dennis Green, not here. Joyce Beretta,
Here.
Rosemary Calhoun,
Here.
Linda Brennan.
Here.
Josh Clemens here. All right, having a quorum, let's proceed. So a couple things, just, in general business discussion. We'll go into approval of minutes and then we'll go into ongoing business. So first up, approval of minutes from our September 21st session. Does anyone have any comments or edits to the minutes?
I just want to clarify what was said. Because,
Okay.
There was something about contacting DEM for New Day, and I thought Rory had offered to do that. And I'm like, and if it's me, if I'm supposed to, I want to know about it, so I'll go ahead and do it. It's on page 2 on the bottom paragraph.
Oh, yeah, it says member Brennan will contact DM about the New Day. Member Carmody has a contact at DM that she will call to get the name of the right person for member Brennan to contact.
No, and I did not do that yet. Sorry.
Are you okay with contacting the DM?
Okay,
or-
so you're gonna give me the contact and then I'll contact DEM?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Does that work?
that's fine.
Does that sound good? Okay. The only edit I have, I think, is in the header. It calls it, oh no, it is the September 2nd executive session. Never mind. I think I'm good.
And this, under the issues of interest for the October 19th, 2021 agenda, it said Chairman Underwood would like to bring up discussion to streamline. It should be Chairman Clements.
Correct.
Brought that up. Page 6, yeah, it should be the third paragraph under the issues of interest. Should be Chairman Clements. That's just a correction on that instead of Chairman Underwood. That's the only corrections I saw.
Yeah, everything else is pretty good.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with those corrections.
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? All right. great. On to ongoing business. So starting off, we'll talk land trust finances. And Glenn, I know you were interested in this, and I think we had a discussion this week.
Yes. And I also sent out an email today after having a discussion with Glenn. I received financial statements from Lori in the finance department. If you didn't receive that email, there are some additional copies in the middle there. And I'll just let you take it, Josh, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
Sure.
I'll try to clarify.
Yeah, so the overarching theme, right, is around finances, I think is on the front page of the packet. And this is just our operating budget, as I understand it, right? The approved budget of around $7,000 total for the year. And it has the different components of that budget, right? So one kind of fixed cost is our secretary. So we have a great secretary, takes great minutes here. So, we're paying for that on an annual basis. The payroll taxes, I haven't quite figured out. I'm assuming that it relates to the secretary contract as well. And then the areas where we have some leeway or where we're doing spending is advertising, non-book materials, and then professional services. And I believe that's where we're trying to fit in our appraisals and or survey work, correct?
Yes, so if you add up those 3 items, you have $2,000 in advertising, $24.15 in professional services, and on here it says $753.62 in non-book materials. So this isn't the most up-to-date version, just because at all different times the finances are changing because we spend money on certain services and or items. So right now what's being reflected is the tree screws, the washers, and the springs and things like that. What's not reflected is the sign for the Janice Sullivan property. So the sign, all altogether is $923.33. And then there was $150 fee that isn't on there yet for the portable restroom at your event. And then we're looking at a $2,400 fee for an appraisal on the Leah Kavanaugh property. So those are things that aren't yet included in this budget, but they are incoming. I'm keeping track of them. They just haven't been sent to the finance department because we haven't yet received those services, or they just haven't gotten through the system yet.
So our effective operating budget for the remainder of this fiscal year, which goes into June of next year, 22, is around $4,000 to $5,000, it sounds like.
So I will say what you can work with, you start at $5,400. It's those three accounts,
Mhm.
the $2,000, the $2,400, and then $1,000. So if you back out the price of the appraisal, the portable restroom, the sign, and the other tree spruce materials and things. So we're looking at, let me see real quick. So the total of that is $3,719.71 is what's been spent or is to be spent in the near future. And if you back that out of the $5,415, you're looking at about $1,700. It's $1,695.29 to be exact, is what's left to be spent.
What was it? I'm sorry, what was the number that you got?
$1,695.29.
Just notes here, a question. John, you probably don't know the answer. We're being charged overtime for something here, $344, which I have no idea. This is why we ask for these things, because obviously we shouldn't have overtime in our account here being charged to us for our operating expenses.
You're servicing that.
So it's a second line down.
Yeah, both those overtime lines are
Yeah.
showing some
second,
value.
third. on the
Yeah,
front.
there's a credit and then there's
Yeah.
for $89.
Yeah, sorry, I was on. I had a different version, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that, I'm sure it's something that got charged to our account that shouldn't be, and that's, that was, we noticed that when Dennis first started getting this stuff, originally, that we had a lot of stuff that was charged to land trust, that weren't land trust expenses or shouldn't be land trust, and that's, and it goes in, when you go into the back pages here, there's charges to the trust account, which there shouldn't be anything touched to the trust account. I'm not sure what that,
So that is at the close. Well, no, that's at 22. I was thinking, that was closing for our past year. But that's projected because it's from July of 2001 to
21.
our fiscal year ending June
Yeah.
30, 22.
Yep.
Yeah, if you look at the column year-to-date expenditures, that's the important column. And then what's so available is just going against the budget. And so the non-book materials was the signs for the tree screws, I should say.
Uh-huh.
But there shouldn't be anything overtime. The payroll taxes go up with should go with the payroll expense, but the payroll expense hasn't been recorded yet.
Hmm.
And this is very frustrating to myself that these numbers aren't,
Detailed.
well, they're not there. They're not correct.
Hmm.
And that's, I don't know why the payroll should have already been charged to us. But if you look in the trust fund account in the back,
Which page?
page, it would be a third page in,
Mhm.
you can see a $245.70. So I don't know whether they're just moving stuff around. And if you look at it, expenditures and expenses, there's a 245.70. So I'm not sure that that's maybe the recording secretary fee and it's in the wrong account.
Yeah, the next page has that 245.70 listed as land trust payroll.
Yeah, so shouldn't be in the trust account. Has nothing to do with the trust account. It should be in this account over here, in our operating budget account. So I think, those things happen, and then they transfer the stuff, they fix it all. But for us, in order to move ahead and stay on top, especially when we got all these appraisals we want done, and, obviously if we do want to do the additional appraisals, we're going to have to ask Russ Crossman to go to the town manager, because our budget got chopped. We used to have, I think it was 10,000, and now we're down to 730 or whatever. So I want to take a look at why this doesn't have the comparison to the previous year or the previous 2 years ago. But I think at one point, I remember our account was 10,000, but that may not be correct. And I thought we had 6,000 at that point for like professional services. Obviously, that's one of the things when you don't use it, which we didn't use, so it's because we didn't have really any appraisals, then people take the money from you. That's how government budgeting.
There's only so much to go around.
Well, this attitude of spend it or you lose it
Yeah,
attitude.
It goes back in the
Yeah.
general fund, I suppose.
Well, then
because-
they say you don't need it next year.
Right,
So they look at what you spent versus what you need. So your projections of what you need are very important. As for doing appraisals and stuff, and that we say, if we're looking at 3 properties a year and the council wants 3 appraisals, and we know that I think John, you said this one, the Leah Kavanaugh one was a little bit more
2,400.
difficult.
Yeah.
Because that
That
is,
was pretty far from what we normally would
Yeah.
expect for an appraisal,
So
right?
it's my expectation that other appraisals
Will be
aren't
more.
nearly as much as the $2,400 one. And every appraiser that I talked to agreed with that fact, because one, there's only so many people that do these
Right.
specific conservation easement development rights types appraisals, and there's a bit more work involved in doing such. So yeah, I will just add that the next few appraisals
should be.
certainly won't be $2,400.
So, but going back to budgeting purposes and things for next year, and the town will start budgeting, in January, they usually start looking at, we want to make sure that if we're looking at 3 or 4 properties per year, or we think we're going to be in that range, that money needs to be in our budget for allowing for that, if that is a standard that we have to have an appraisal to gain muster with the council, then we need to make sure, otherwise we're useless. We can't do anything if we're fighting for money for an appraisal and,
Exactly.
we're out of business.
If the expectation is an appraisal for each property, then we need to be funded in
Right.
such a way to allow for that, right?
Yep, otherwise we can't acquire it. So, I'm sure, and in the past, Russell and prior to Russell Crossman, they say, well, we'll go back and we'll jiggle some money around within budgets, but we all know it's tight budgets, it's early in the season, the budget season, so people aren't going to be too interested in saying, well, we'll take another 1,000 from this account to try and get you your appraisal. But I just want to, those are the couple of things that, we just have to get back on. And, but I do think that this is important to have each month. And if you look at our page 2, our trust fund balance, that's what's, we really want to watch that, because that's our pot of money to be able to help acquire property.
Mhm.
And might I add, I just want to say, I know that this was recently given to all of you, so Glenn or Josh or anybody, if you look at this more in depth and you have specific questions, you can forward them to me and I can certainly try to get to the bottom of why something might seem out of sorts, and we can try to get to the bottom of it, whether there's an explanation as to why it should be there, or if there was an error in some way, and we can try to figure that out. If you want to email me when you.
Yeah, so my tracking here and the last fiscal year, the outgoing at 403 was our portion of the heritage, the incoming from our taxes or the transfer fees looks like 306. So we're netted out by, we spent 96,000 more than what we took in last year with our portion of the heritage, which is we expected that. And that gets us to the 1.7 million, 1739 that we have there. So that's good.
So the 306 was the income.
It looks like from the income that should have been for the year.
Yeah, I might need some more review on this, John, because I'm not sure the inputs and outputs on this fund balance and like the section that's showing liability. Or is that just assets we have, or the money isn't necessarily there? I don't know, there's more questions I have, but I don't know
Yeah,
how
and I'll
to phrase them appropriately.
I'll be honest, I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of it,
Mhm.
but if you have a list of questions that you can send me, I can relay those and try to get those answers for you.
But I think it also, to your point, Glenn, right? If the town council is requiring an appraisal, costs money, it's not in our budget, or we're not budgeted for it effectively, how can we leverage the other tools that we've used in the past to perform appraisals, whether it's, the skinny appraisal, the value of the property within like the town appraisals, right? Like the properties get appraised on some frequency by the town. And where can we leverage that information versus going and paying for a separate appraisal for each property acquisition, right? Where's our sense of
Yeah,
comfort?
well, I think we know from our discussion that we had with the council there that appraisal are an important key factor. They're not going to rely on us to come up with a number. So somehow, somewhere, either the we have to say, set a goal of if it's 3 properties we think, or 2 properties we think per year that we're interested in and actually can function on, then we have to make sure next year's budget process includes that. And we can argue that with the town manager, or Russell should argue that with the town manager and saying, look, in order to be able to function as a land trust, we need that money. I don't think it's critical to go any further tonight, because I think we just, if we do need an additional appraisal, we're just going to have to tell Russ this is our objective. And if we have to speak to the town manager, we have to speak to the town manager and see, where they can come up with the money if we need an additional.
I will also add that, if I may, there is $1,700 left. So I don't expect with the appraisals that are underway at this moment, I don't know that we would blow through the budget or run out of money right away anyway, but it is good to know, just so you know, to prioritize whether you want to spend that money on appraisals or materials or what have you. But I think we'll at least be covered for the next few that we already have underway.
Yeah. And I think as we get into the old business and review the properties, right, it's kind of priority or ranking the ones that we have in flow. And I think all of the ones that we have listed, we've already had discussions about getting appraisals for them. So I think we'll just keep moving forward with those. It just will be a challenge as we get through these and into the next ones, into the beginning of next year or start of next year, what properties may come up. I know there's a couple pieces that I'd like to look at, but it sounds like we're maybe, let's manage the ones we've got and then build a budget for next year that incorporates kind of the same number, 3 to 4. I'm wondering also if there's other avenues to provide that financing. And, I just got a letter from the Land Trust Council, and there's other support areas in the state that maybe could help with, funding appraisals, whatnot, grants. So I'll do a little digging on that. Any other comments on the finances anyone wants to add? The next one, we'll go on to outreach avenues for encouraging or organizing volunteers. I don't know if anyone's got updates on outreach or progress rather on volunteers.
I sent something to Coventry High School to the principal and to Dr. Pothier, I think, runs the Envirothon, asking if we could get their students somehow involved with some of our projects. I just haven't heard back yet.
Okay, great. Yeah, I met with Superintendent Lettuce, kind of the same thing. He mentioned Dr., or I don't know if it's Dr. Pothier, but the
Yep.
teacher Pothier.
Yep.
And another individual for outreach to try to get students engaged. So
Yep.
I'll keep following up on the emails that I got, and if you keep following up
Yep.
on those, and we'll see what happens. So great. There is a new, I'll say, community member that reached out on just accessing the properties and doing geocaching. I don't know if that's necessarily, volunteering, but they're interested in accessing our properties and maybe setting up some sort of geocache to encourage people to go there. I don't know if anyone had any objections to geocaching, or if anyone has any idea what that is, I guess, maybe to start with.
My family's done the old fashioned kind of geocaching without the internet stuff. And it's actually a lot of fun, and it usually doesn't disturb the property too much. Sometimes they do plant things slightly off trails,
Yeah.
but they're usually pretty considerate as far as what I've seen. And it's kind of like a treasure hunt. People, hide something on the trail and then leave clues as to how to find it. And it's a great activity for families. So we really enjoyed it when our kids were young. So
I figured the Land Trust Council creature that we put out there was some sort of geocaching, that there wasn't like an objection within the Land Trust to that activity.
right.
I'm in agreement, right? Like not hidden out in the woods, stashed somewhere, but close to the trails appropriate. So
Right.
it was great. It was great outreach. I think maybe Glenn, you might have been on the email from the individual, just someone in that Bramble Bush neighborhood who's using that new trailhead and getting out there with the kids. So I thought it was a great story.
No, I think that's what we want to see. Like you say, we don't want blazing new trails or whatever, and use our existing system, and let's use of the land, which is a good thing.
And I ran into a couple individuals during some site walks that I was doing and got some contact information. So I'll just kind of keep pinging the individuals that I run into. And if you guys are out in the woods and on our trails and see people, try to engage them and make sure they know it's Land Trust property. I think that's the other piece, is people are still unaware that it exists, and keep advertising it. So next topic then, Coventry Land Trust website updates.
Okay.
So Linda did some good work, just kind of organizing thoughts of what our website could look like. Didn't get this out early enough to be emailed to everyone, but it's at least a kind of a header of information.
So basically, I just kind of built this based on other websites I've been to and what I might want to be looking for. And so most websites have an about tab. So you just pull it up and it's about the land trust. And so that would be kind of our history and that kind of thing. But and then properties available for hiking. And so I would put up a tab for each of the individual properties within that, so that, telling about that property and what the trail was like and how to access it. I don't think within that I would include properties that are not open to the public. Like if we get the Ledge Road, property, we wouldn't include that property there, because we wouldn't want to necessarily advertise a property that people couldn't access. And then I had a tab for donations. Most entities have a donations tab, and underneath that, I thought I would split out the different kind of donations, like if you want to donate your property, if you're looking to do a conservation easement, development rights, or financial contributions. And I had a question about that. Do we accept financial contributions, or are we totally town funded?
I believe that we could accept financial contributions and or donations, but I don't know.
There are
We
some
might have to talk to a
restrictions.
solicitor on that
There are
one.
some restrictions because someone wanted to donate $100,000 for us to buy his friend's property.
Mm,
And we can't do that sort of thing. The 100,000 would have to go into the general fund and into our trust fund. You know, we can't work contributions in that way.
Sure. Yeah, I was reading something through this act earlier that said something about donations. Yeah, purchase received by gift or otherwise acquire fee simple or lesser properties and real property, including development rights. So that's received by gift donations of property, not necessarily, it says except.
Money, it
it
could
says
be
except-
financial contributions. And
Yeah,
that's possible.
this is under, right, the trust shall have the responsibility to recommend to the town council to accept gifts, grants, or loan funds. So if someone did want to donate, and that's a perfect example, right? It's got to go to
Right.
the town council, and then you dig into the details of, all right, this is,
Right,
maybe
there would
not
be
on
an
the up and up.
interest, I suppose. If we accepted money from someone toward a purchase, that person maybe has some interest in the purchase.
Sure.
That's
Right.
probably, I don't know,
Is-
possibly.
Is it possible for you to clarify that?
So, I know there is precedent for like some sort of land donation or something like that. As far as financial donations, I'm not so sure about. But that could be something that I could reach out to the solicitor and see exactly what our obligations are and,
Yeah,
It's actually allowed.
prior to COVID, we were working on having that set up with the town treasurer and the town solicitor to say, so we would
Right.
prepare a brochure that would have the procedures of how, if someone wanted to make a gift and directly to the land trust fund,
Mhm.
how that would work, the mechanism of doing that. So to stage it out. So that's obviously what we never got, that next step that we need to do, and then have that piece of or flyer or folder available at our events and stuff if you want to make a cash contribution to the trust fund. Then we also talked about cash contribution if they wanted to donate money for a bench or something that we needed. How would that work? So there's two kinds of cash that may come in. One may be for something that we could use on the property,
Mhm.
and one may be for, they want to put it in the trust fund and then trying the situation with earmarking is a whole different
Mhm.
thing, that I'll give you 100,000 only for.
Yeah, to buy my friend's
Right, I
property.
think that's a whole,
That's harder.
so that's a third avenue that may come, that when we're looking to buy a piece of property that, well, we've got a state grant, we've got our own money, and then so-and-so X is also willing to contribute 100,000 towards the purchase price.
Hmm.
So we need to understand how that would work, but I think the first step is just getting the general donation to if someone wanted to have, give money to say they die and want to bequeath money to the trust fund because they were concerned about, we don't want to pass up that, if someone, so I think we need to be able, and I think Linda's got it right, that kind of thing would go into that financial contributions on how to do it. So we need to get that figured out.
It would be good to have, that information, the details of it.
Yeah.
I think whether it's financial contributions or any of these donations, right, or just how does a simple fee acquisition work, conservation, just so people know, this is how we can
Right, yeah.
donate or preserve
Yeah.
property. Because I think to your point, Glenn, or where you mentioned, right, if people pass away, there's older people who are concerned about, hey, what's going to happen to this property when I go to the great beyond, and how do we keep it safe, whether financially or conserve in some way. So
Mhm.
awesome.
Okay, and then have a tab for volunteer opportunities, a tab for events that we're planning in the future, and that tab would have to be updated. Because one thing you don't want to have with a website is a website that's stagnant and isn't current. And then perhaps a tab for news, like if, a link to an article about the land trust or something like that. When we've been in the news, and then another tab to contact us. So I don't know whether anybody has any comments about this
No,
layout.
that's
and
great. I think it did a great start on
Yeah, in simplifying it and combining, we had some repetition.
the news link would be, you know, what the information, and I'm not sure whether everyone's on the distribution list of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, and the stuff that they circulate to us is that they have a pretty comprehensive email that covers a whole
Yeah.
bunch of various things and a lot of, so if we were able to embed that link to their website under news there, because they keep theirs up to date with a lot of events and a lot of activities going on. It's really interesting to watch. They've done a super job, in my opinion, on including some other land trust hikes that I think the Smithfield one was in that last one or something. There was something going on, but you know, so I think that this is a great start on
Yeah.
building. We just need to work on the donation portion, obviously, and then just acquiring the rest of the stuff to put it together and then
Right.
and figure out how it's gonna get updated on the town.
So does any, I'm sorry, Linda, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, so if, so what I can do is I can get started creating content for these tabs. And then, and I'll look at what I've already got. There are probably gonna be holes in my knowledge, that hopefully, you know, you folks can help me fill in, but, so I can get started trying to create the text to go in under these tabs. I do not know how to create a website or.
And so that piece, I think, in talking with Cody, it was, if you, the land trust, are able to provide the content, then he can put it into the website. I don't think it will be anything, you know, fancy, but it will be, you know, text, and maybe we can build hyperlinks or tabs for each of the properties. So he would handle that side of it.
Okay.
He just needs us to provide the content for him to upload.
And this media club at the high school too, it might be an internship or something that the students could work on too, is updating the website. But when I hear back from Principal Maycomber or Dr. Pothier, I'll add that is that another opportunity?
Yeah. Yeah, because I did a little sampling, and I don't know if you have all done this, but you know, poked around to a couple other land trust websites and just seeing the variety that's out there. Some are great, some are clunky, some are old, you know, nobody's using like GeoCities, but it's still, you know, some of them looked a little dated. And ours falls into that bucket of maybe less than useful for someone who's going to look for a hike.
Mhm.
It's helpful in terms of like town history. Here's where we've been. These are the places that we've preserved. So just, you know, a refresh. I was going to ask if people wanted to take a stab at filling in each of these sections or volunteer for a different section, but it sounds like you're willing to take on some of it.
Okay.
I can certainly work on hike descriptions or details for a couple of them
Okay.
myself.
And Dennis has a pretty good grasp on a lot of this stuff. He's got a pile of information that he's built, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was already within the website. It's just organizing it.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of explanation about land trusts in general that we maybe don't need.
Yep.
You know, it's our land trust, and people will pick up other information just looking for ours.
Yeah, that can be a link out here.
Right, because there was quite a bit about what a land trust is, and, you know, and repetition of the natural resources, you know, in a couple areas, you know, from the old one that I had in here.
And I think there's other resources that we can add as we go along. So I was looking, I think it was the Situate Land Trust. Each of the properties they have preserved, they have, you know, here's a link, and then it's got the property management plan, the details of what they're trying to do there. Here's the map. I think we could get to that point, right? There's other
Yeah, but you know,
conservation easements, forest management plans that I think exist in the land trust that we could, you know, better advertise or manage in some way. All right. Any other comments or thoughts on the website updating?
Does anybody want to volunteer for a particular tab? And I'll get started on the other.
you know, the brochure we have is very simple, even though, you know, the one we've used in the past, even though it doesn't include us currently, it needed updating. But it was good, and it showed what's around besides Coventry, but adjoining us, Audubon land, town land, state land. You know, the map, we had a great map. Remember our map of conservation areas.
Yeah, I've been looking at, the online GIS resources that exist just for the state, and they've got a couple good maps. I'd like to try to combine them, like the state preserved land in Coventry and then all the private preserved. land,
Right,
like-
we had a map just like that,
Yep.
Josh. I don't know if anyone still has that or how deeply it's buried somewhere, but someone who worked as the assistant planner
bet
set it
Dennis
up
has
for us, for the whole town,
Yeah,
and they were color coded, so you could see what was ours and,
yeah. I think the online GIS is pretty up to date, although it does not include the Bowden property in the map that I saw, so it might be, a year out of date in terms of all of the properties.
Mhm.
It was hard to segregate by town properties versus land trust properties. I think that designation maybe isn't in all the, let's say, metadata in the GIS system. So that's an area to maybe update or look at updating.
Mhm.
Okay. Website. Good. On to the calendar of important dates. We've got those. I think in thinking on that calendar, right, the first one up, I believe, was Earth Day.
Mhm.
So maybe as we get into trail system discussions, but it's planning towards a cleanup or some sort of event on Earth Day. And I think, the good focus would be Stella Hall, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of work to do out there. So I think if we plan most of those dates to be focused around Stella Hall, with the exception, I think, the Nathaniel Green Day, we talked about being out at Hope Meadows. Most of the other ones kind of synced well with Stella Hall and getting that property prepared for next year's land trust days.
Hmm.
I don't think we need to add any other dates. I don't know if we want to discuss or review any of the dates that we have.
I just want to point out that I had offered to kind of as a raffle When Rivers Burned, which is the Earth Day story. So it's the book right there if anybody wants to take a look at it.
I'd like to look at both of them. Maybe after the meeting, I'll take a
Sure.
quick spin through them. They look good.
And for Nathaniel Green, somebody suggested the Black Regiment, offering that, because it's about the Revolutionary War. And I can, but I have limited numbers of that book. So I have a lot more copies of When Rivers Burn, just the way it fell out. But I only have a few of the Black Regiment, so I can only offer one.
Maybe we could do a raffle, and having recently seen Stella Hall, whoever picks up the most nip bottles can also maybe win a copy of the book, because that was pretty egregious out there. But yeah, so I think planning towards Earth Day at Stella Hall is good. I like the idea of a raffling the book or some way to kind of drive engagement. And I know you've been working with the community out at Green as well, so maybe engaging some other people to come out and help us clean up.
My daughter has 7 kayaks we can use,
Wow.
whether we do it for
When
the
we go
Stella
out to the
Hall
canoe
Day
day,
or for an
yeah.
Earth Day or whatever. She has 7 in the family, plus extensions, so.
I was thinking on that canoe day, because it seemed like it might be tough to get a canoe up to Stella Hall just with the lily pads, depending on the time
Oh,
of the
yes,
year.
it could, yes.
Maybe we just sell it as like a spin around the islands of Stump Pond, right? The
Yeah,
islands
that
are all part of
island
land
is
trust.
between, the launching and Stella Hall Pond. So we could use the kayaks whenever we want to, I suppose.
There you go.
Yeah, she'd be pretty flexible with that. But I didn't know if we'd use it like on the September event featuring Stella Hall, or if we use it on Canoe Day. There were quite a few hikers at the Sullivan dedication who are kayakers, and they were very excited when they heard about that launch in the Stella Hall property.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I just have a concern about your daughter. I think that's very generous offering kayaks, but is there a liability issue there? In other words, if people are bringing their own kayaks, that's one thing. Is there more of a liability for the town? If
Oh,
the
yeah.
town
I
is
always think we
offering-
would need, there is regulation and training and whatever for Johnson's Pond, Flat River Reservoir, a town agency. They patrol it.
Mhm.
So I was thinking we would need that emergency water management, whatever group it is. And we would need to set up barriers. I've seen those little floating balls
Right.
with a line, because there is a dam. just beyond the launch area. There's a swimming hole, there's a dam with the water rushing over. We don't want anyone going over the dam or too close to it, I
Just
don't imagine.
Put whatever it is south. north of
whitewater
the bridge.
kayaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the 7 kayaks
Yeah.
that are on offer here would be enough to
Yeah, if you
form
had
a
a
land
little
trust
flotilla
flotilla,
of
so-
our own even,
So I
yeah,
don't think it would be for the public, maybe use, maybe
Okay.
just be
yeah,
land trust use or something.
yeah, well, it make us visible.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I was just a little concerned about handing somebody from the public.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
am I, so am I.
Okay.
No, I think it'd be the same discussion that we had around liability of kind of trail work, right? At some point, it becomes inherent on the individual that they're coming to do this activity and they should
Right.
recognize the risks
Uh-huh.
inherent. It can be challenging in society today, though,
Yeah.
for people to
Yep.
hold themselves accountable.
I've got some mock-up for the raffle tickets, so I have extra raffle tickets from the last raffle. that we can use. Thanks, so that we can hopefully get more information from people.
And on the Nathaniel Green history, right? I know that there's some history from Stump Pond and Nathaniel Green, so that might be a good tie-in too. I know we talked about Hope Meadows and Nathaniel Green. Some way to kind
Maroon
of.
Swamp. I
Maroon
remember an
Swamp, I
elder
thought that was
person
Stump Pond,
talking
okay.
about Maroon Swamp, which I think is Coventry Center.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe not.
Some.
You know, that they got for the iron ore.
Bog iron.
Yeah,
And I'm more thinking of like, what are some things that we can tell people when we're out on the water? Hey, this area or this region, right? There's the area that we preserved. I think we'll have Nayland there, right? Stump or Stella Hall in the back, Bowden bike path. But then here's the history of this space and another aspect of
right,
why
mixed
it's
with
worthy
one of our
preservation.
history, societies. We have more than one in town.
Yep.
There's one that does just Reed Schoolhouse,
Mhm.
the other that does Payne.
Mhm.
There's the Nathaniel Green Association. It seems there's so much, and it can be overwhelming, that having a site and dedicating to that history is probably the only feasible way to go.
Very good. Yeah, I guess I'll follow up the Historical Society, see if they have any information on that, just building towards, what are we going to talk about on that day and things to share as we travel around the pond.
Have someone from the historical groups,
All right, anything else we want to discuss on calendar dates? Maybe we can flesh that out to be dates and build more project plans as we approach those dates in the next set of meetings. Anything else to add there? Covered. All right, on to 5.5 potential properties of interest. I don't know if any new ones have come up. I did see a few larger tracks out in Western Coventry, but they all kind of had conflicts or buildings. One had solar array on it, so kind of challenging acquisitions that I don't think we should pursue at this point. But if anyone finds other new ones, let me know. All right, on to 5.6 grant opportunities. As Glenn mentioned earlier, right, the Land Trust Council sends out kind of a monthly, bi-weekly newsletter. I'm not sure of the frequency yet, but I've started reading it, and they have a series of grant opportunities listed at the bottom. One is on trail preservation and I forget what the term was now. Basically building signage or how to improve access and maintain the access. And I was wondering if there's any appetite around that towards building or increasing the signage around the historical aspects of what are on our preserved properties, right? And I'm thinking specifically Bowden and that old farmhouse in the cellar hole there. Is there some way to, build a history or some story of what happened at that site? Why is it, historically significant? It might be worth putting in a grant for, writing up a grant. I don't know if anyone has the appetite for that or interest.
I was thinking invasive plants,
Hmm.
but unfortunately I ran into some. Bittersweet. I didn't realize how dangerous Asian
Oh,
bittersweet
I
could
know.
be. But someone else working at the library had it around her ankles, bittersweet. She was doing invasive plant pull. So we would need to worry about liability, but that might even fit in with Earth Day if we could get a grant for invasive plants and have people prepared for that. It really means covering all your skin. My gloves went to here and the shirt was there, so that didn't protect.
Is there somewhere that you found grants that would support that? Because I think at
Grants
that,
for invasive plants, I think are available, aren't they? Has anyone looked at those? I don't know if she was pulling, I meant to ask her if she was doing this independently or for a group.
Oh,
Another thought I had was there in by the Frank Sherman boat launch on the old 117 that runs through Coventry Center.
Yep.
You know, there's, I think it's Cuso, and it's on both sides of the road, thick hedge. So I thought if we got a grant to pull some on town land, maybe we could use the money for the land trust. You know, we could donate our service, but use the grant for the land trust.
okay, yeah, I mean, if there's funding opportunities out there for invasive, species removal, I think that there's opportunities that exist within our properties, the land trust properties, right? As well as within the town.
Yeah,
and I
but
think
if
along
we
the
went
bike
beyond
path,
the
right?
town, I haven't seen, I don't know that we have a lot of trouble, but there is trouble in other areas, like on town property.
Yeah.
And the town might appreciate us having done that. And, we would be keeping the grant money for our own trust.
Yeah. If you find some
I'll look for
invasive
that.
plant opportunities,
I'll
that would
check
be
with
good.
the girl with the problem who didn't wear socks.
There you go. Yeah, like I said, I know around that farmstead, right, the Comstock farmstead that's on Bowden property, there's, I think it's barberry or Japanese barberry that's there and kind of infiltrating that site. So that would be an area of remediation within something that we manage, I guess, versus on a town property or the bike path, right? Those areas usually have invasives as well from the development. Okay. And then I thought I'd seen something else around grants around rebuilding old stone walls or historic stone walls. So the same thing on that Bowden property near the Comstock farmstead, there's kind of a historic double stone wall, which is a unique feature that looks like it was kind of damaged or destroyed during, perk testing and whatnot that may be worthy of restoration.
There are some stone heaps too, Joshua, and I've read that Native Americans would bring a stone to a funeral. They would each bring a stone and they would end up being a big stone mound beyond just being a clearing of a field. That's something we would have to research. But it could be, there are some mounds. I forget if it was the white trail or the yellow trail. You saw those, Jack, when you were out there?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, we saw, my daughter and I on the weekend saw a couple, stone mounds, and we were talking about that. There's a massive one at Audubon Park of Woodland.
There's a lot of them
Yeah.
at Parker Woodland. But as far as I know, they had not figured out their origin. Because there was an article put out by the Audubon Society probably a few years ago now, about how they have all these wonderful stone mounds, but they don't have any concrete evidence as to
They don't know why. Yeah.
who built them or when.
All right. I think that wraps up grant opportunities. On to old business. Thank you. We'll talk about the properties that we have in flux. Maybe prioritize those if we want to talk in terms of finances. And then, I think there's one new property or revisited property with BlackRock. So we'll start with Janice Sullivan. Post-event press release. So I've reached out to Kent County. I sent an email to Kendra. I haven't heard back. So I'm still working on getting a news article about the day. Working on that. And then the task worksheet without Dennis here, I don't have many details. I think the next task was really just meadow work. I don't know if we have any updates on that meadow or funding or thoughts on that.
So I reached out to, I wasn't getting any answer from either the URI or from Audubon. So I reached out to a specific person at Audubon who's led walks that I've attended. And I gave her more detailed, instead of just asking about meadows in general, I said, we're from the Coventry Land Trust. We've got an upland meadow. This and this and this are already growing there. And do we just is it best to just mow and let nature take its course? Should we sow it with seed? You know, can you recommend either, you know, from your own knowledge, what we should do, or whether there's a resource you can recommend? So I haven't heard back, but that was fairly recently that I sent that out. I did look out, I did some more internet research, and a lot of places sell flower mixes for meadows. But then when I dug deeper, like state management websites said, you really don't want to sow a whole bunch of flowers in a meadow. That meadows are made up more of more grasses than flowers. So you really would be better off sowing. You could sow some flowers, certainly, but that a grass mixture might be a better bet than to do flowers. That's why I really feel like we need more guidance.
Okay.
And I think, you know, it's very alluring to plant beautiful flowers, but that might not be our best course of action.
I think if we get some great flowers, there's a lot of other spaces along the hill there. But where the road was kind of plowed out, that we could
Right.
try to edit in a couple other flowers versus what's existing there now. So
And part of me always feels that maybe we should let
just let it go.
it go, because let nature do what nature wants to do, and then it will plant the flowers that'll grow there.
Right.
And it takes years,
Yes.
to develop something like that. And I've read that the pollinators will winter in the grasses. But
Right.
if there is some grass, let it stay until spring if you have to cut it all, because they'll overwinter in the grass. I'm trying to do that with my front lawn.
Well, yeah, and and that's another thing is when we do mow, it should be at a specific time, and we have to research to find out when the best time would be. If you don't want to if you mow in the springtime, are you disturbing nesting birds?
Right.
It has to be early enough, so after the snow and before the woodcocks are there, and all that.
I read when it's 60, 50 degrees consistently in the spring, early spring is the time to cut, because by then everything is hatched and escaped, the pollinators.
Very good. Well, I know we reach out to the schools, talk to the Envirothon team, and I think I asked about the landscape architecture, landscape design type class as well. So we'll keep kind of pursuing that option and see what gets proposed or whatnot. I agree. Sometimes it's just easier to let it go, let it grow, and see what shows up, and then maybe just selectively edit as we see fit.
We already have 3 native that I saw blooming, and that's only in the fall blooms, and that's sweet everlasting, asters, and goldenrod. So we have those already there.
Great.
I did send I mailed out the winners all of their gift certificates, and then I sent letters to each of the people who donated to us, thank you letters, and dropped those all off too.
Awesome. And everyone's received their raffle prize. And awesome.
Yep, and then I sent you the list, the Excel spreadsheet of everybody's
Yep.
contact information who signed up.
Great. I think with that, we'll probably take Janice Sullivan out of old business and kind of just move it to ongoing property management.
What about the sign?
Oh, the sign, you're right. I was just there and I didn't see the sign installed yet, and it's at Dennis's house.
It's still at
correct?
Dennis's house. It's funny, I talked to Dan the other day, and he has Janice's son-in-law ready with an auger to do that just whenever they want to
It's
do it.
coordination.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think, was it last weekend Dennis couldn't do it?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it was last weekend he
weekend
couldn't do it,
wasn't.
so we knew we couldn't do it then, so then we're just trying to figure out like when we can.
Yeah, I was there Sunday and noticed the
Yep.
sign wasn't up yet.
Yep, Dan has, I think Bo's her husband, but he has the son-in-law's number who has the stuff, so when we figure it out with Dennis, we should be able to do it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Dan's, whenever, weekends usually are better for him, I think for the son-in-law too, and I think for,
Yeah, I guess when that happens, or if it comes up between now and our next meeting, maybe
Yep.
just shoot an email.
Oh,
out to
absolutely.
Everyone to let us
Yep.
know, keep us in the loop if we need to get together for a volunteer day, work day. But yeah, so the sign maybe is still tasked, but I think that still falls under ongoing property management related now that it's acquired. So we'll move maybe some of the topics around Janice Sullivan to our ongoing property management
Yep.
future meetings. And then we'll talk on appraisal status. John, you tell me how you'd like to approach this, if you've got updates on those three, or you want to just kind of give us the rundown on all the appraisal statuses of Grasset, Kavanaugh, and Camp Green.
Okay, so let me start, I'll just take this and I guess run with it. Let me start with the Grasset property and the Camp Green property. Just
Okay.
Because I've tackled those kind of same time, because it just makes sense while I have people on the phone and I'm sending out emails. I have asked them to potentially put a bid in on both. So we're kind of at the same level with each of those. I have reached out to everybody and I believe that we're all set getting people on board. I am waiting for one bid at the end of this week, and it's my expectation that at the beginning of next week, I can work on picking somebody and getting the appraisals scheduled. And so, yeah, I'll just summarize that and saying I'm just waiting on one more, and next week should be the day, date. As far as the Leah Kavanaugh property, like last time, somebody's been picked. It is Newport Appraisal Group. As we had discussed earlier, their bid came in at $2,400. They were actually cheaper than our most expensive bid, which was $3,000. And believe it or not, he actually, even though he came in several $100s cheaper, he did have the most impressive write-up of what exactly he was going to do, his methodology, and what he was going to be providing to us. So that's why I picked him. He is running a little behind. He said either he will call me. At the time that I talked to him, he said he'd call me in 2 weeks. We are coming up on that date. So if I don't hear anything by the end of this week, I'll follow up with him and try to figure out where they're at and what their schedule is like, and we'll get that underway. I did reach out to Leah Kavanaugh, and I included Josh on that email and let her know the status of all that. So she's on board with everything and is just waiting until I have more information, and then I can relay that to her. So that's what I have, if anybody has any questions. But these things are moving forward.
Well, maybe we'll just run through each of them individually if there's any concerns on the property themselves. So we'll start 6-2 Grasset property. Sounds like appraisal, we'll get an idea early next week.
Yes.
Send out offers.
For
Any-
schedule appraisals.
Early
Schedule.
schedule appraisals, yep.
So I think with that, we just need to make sure that Gary Grassick gets notified that, you
Right.
know, the status and that the date of the appraisal, so.
Yeah, and the first step is actually picking them, and then that's when it gets down to the details. Okay, when can you come out and do
Yeah.
it? And there's always some sort of lead time with that, so he'll have plenty of notice.
And is that a contact that you'll make then, once you
Correct.
kind of coordinate? Okay, great. Any other concerns on the Grasset property or things that we need to consider there? I don't think we have any other challenges or updates we need to make pending that appraisal, and then I think the next step would get the appraisal, go back to the town council and work towards approval to acquire. On the Kavanaugh property, so that was the one you mentioned, the appraisal was $2,400. I don't know if it would be appropriate for us to take a vote to approve that. I mean, we made the request for the appraisal, we
We
did
said to do it
what the
already.
town said, right? Yeah. The town guidance was 3 bids, lowest of the bidder, so, you know, what we asked for is in. And then on Camp Green, or I guess to close out Kavanaugh, any other thoughts, concerns, challenges that we had there? I think we've put a lot of time into that one, so it'd be good to move forward and get that appraisal. And then 6.4, so the Camp Green property, I did have contact again with Bill, right?
Mhm.
And just, discussing the contract on destroying or removing the buildings that are there, kind of cleaning it up. And his concern is again on how to get reimbursed. And, his recommendation was some sort of non-refundable deposit to purchase the property that covers the demolition of the buildings that are there and cleanup. So kind of some surety that, the owner is reimbursed for the demolition. We have intentions to move ahead with the acquisition, and then here's our deposit that covers the demolition of those properties and then continue to move forward. So that's, I think, work maybe Glenn, you can help guide me in
Yeah,
working
I
through
think
the
once-
solicitor on what
Right.
that would look
I
like.
think the solicitor, and once we
Yeah.
get the appraisal, and we're happy with that, then that's the next step is the solicitor and the town manager and, we still haven't brought that one to the town council yet. So I think the appraisal will give us, reassure that if it comes in at the right range that we're looking at, then the technical side of it, will have to be done by the people that are responsible for the legal side. So, yeah.
And I just want to, maybe not clarify, but just say this, the appraisal, whatever is appraised is what's the property as it is. So that is with all the buildings and everything that's on it, it's as is. That would be what they
They
set the
see,
value at. And then it would be up to whoever would be demoing the buildings to come up with that separate.
Yep,
piece
and
of
I believe the owner is working on
Yes.
some evaluation of, here's what it would cost to demo
Right.
and remove.
So I'll just say it's not, we're not getting a value on the potential property that we all want as far as, vacant land with trails and systems and stuff. It's the property as it stands today. That's what it would be valued.
But I guess, and I'm used to seeing like an appraisal has a value of land and then a value of buildings,
Right.
right? It's just the value of that in terms of acquisitions would then become maybe the value of the land and the value of demolition, not necessarily the value of the properties themselves.
Right.
If I'm thinking of that in the right way. So then, yeah, the appraisal would give us the value of the land, which is what the town would need, the town council, and then we would have the bid from whoever's doing the demo to justify the cost of acquisition. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments on the green property? So then 6.5, we have the Capuana Realty LLC property at Reed Schoolhouse Road. We have a site visit scheduled for the 7th. It's in here, it says rain date for site visit. I don't know if we need to make a rain date. We're just planning for
Yeah,
November
and
7th.
right now, my last conversation with him, he was thinking he's gonna do something else, so hold on, we'll keep the date scheduled, but don't, until I confirm, I will give him one more call. And if he's up in the air floating around and doing that, then we'll call it off and,
Yeah.
we can't keep playing the game of
Right.
bait and switch and whatever,
Yeah.
if he's looking at other options and, that's fine, but if he's serious about dealing with us, well, then deal with us, but we can't schedule site walks and then everybody make a plan, so I'll reach out to him one more time because his last conversation was he was thinking of doing other stuff. So whatever he thinks he can do with the property, that's up to him, but we went this route once with him already, so.
Been down the road before.
Yeah.
That, I think that's something that might be helpful, just is what properties have we already evaluated to kind of, take out of consideration, and maybe that's just more for me. I'm looking at different things out there and saying, oh, this would be good. Maybe we've already looked at it, and kind of cross-referencing the state map, the private protected lands map, and then seeing what are the other opportunities that exist. So, okay. I had started maybe, I think you had started too, Glenn, preliminary discussions with superintendent just on access to that. Very good. All right, well, we'll
So-
hold for 11:07.
So just to satisfy, because Gail wanted to clarify this date. If you are to move forward with the scheduled site walk on 11/7, that would be rain or shine.
Correct.
Yes,
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
All right, and then 6.6, so revisit, I know this was discussed by the land trust, so maybe the same as the Capuano Realty property, right? The Bamford Family Black Rock Road, the Black Rock, right? And the piece of property, I think it's 1/4 of an acre or smaller, you guys have the handout.
Mhm.
So again, this got brought back to our attention via Director McGee and maybe some outreach with the current owner and looking to kind of preserve this piece of history within the town, the history that's associated with the rock. So open up for any thoughts on the Black Rock property. I think Glenn, John, Joyce, Rory, you guys were present in the last year when this was reviewed. And I don't recall how it ended up, but it basically doesn't seem worth acquiring or fit within the mission of the land trust.
I drove by there today and if it's right across from the toys.
right.
Correct.
There was a whole bunch of heavy equipment in there plowing the ground down.
Hmm.
And so it looked like there was something in process right now.
Hmm.
That I saw today.
Okay.
All right, so I'm not sure whether, and I also have concerns about, there's tales about the rock being used, but how legitimate are those? And I think before I really spent a lot of effort on that, on acquiring a rock like that, I might want to reach out to the Native American community and see if that had any legitimacy.
That's an article that was in the
There's no
Times. a while back.
documentation though, according to reference, at the library.
It might
That
be,
the Native
it might be
Americans,
similar to the Audubon Society piles of rocks, right? Like there's legend, and there's
Right.
lore.
Yes, right.
Right. So, but I do have connections,
You can keep that.
okay. I do have connections with the Native American community. So if you wanted me to do that, I could ask them about,
Okay.
I know Lorenz Spears, who's the director of the Tamaqua Museum.
Yeah, that would be great.
So, but let's find out if the property is, I kind of looked, when I drove past it, I kind of said, I don't even think this property is available right now. 'cause
It is
was
bordered by
being
a lot of
bulldozed.
houses in development.
Yeah.
In the communications I had with Director McGee was around like invasives and overgrowth in the area. And he's like, oh, that would all be cleared out. I don't know if they're doing that clearing now, maybe, but I wouldn't expect that.
Right. So.
But it is under private ownership, so I mean, they can do whatever they like with it, I guess.
Right. So I just want to, I think before I take, Loren is very busy right now. They're building a new museum at URI. So before I take up our time, I want to make sure we're serious about looking at.
I guess
this.
the other question, and I don't think I had a clear answer the first time around, are they interested in selling, or was this something that some Director McGee and some others may have thought is something that we should pursue? If they're not interested in selling, then case is closed pretty quick. So I don't know whether anyone, Jack, and maybe you or Joyce remember whether anyone had any communication from the land trust to the actual owners to see whether they were interested in actually.
There's a liability there too, right? I spoke to someone who used to climb up that rock when she was young, her.
Yep.
Yes, And that might be happening if we own it. We wouldn't have anyone,
Well, yeah,
In
but I like that
charge
story
there.
because it showed there's a lot of like, I think, personal stories about Black Rock.
right,
that-
right,
that-
which
that
is nice,
show
but
its
it's
value
not
to-
going anywhere
Yeah,
either,
It is not going anywhere.
recently.
So I guess that's the next step is number one, the land trust has to have a communication path directly to the owner to say, are you interested in, start the conversation, because again, that's a key. Are they interested in selling that parcel, or are they gonna park more equipment there, or does it interfere with, other things? So I think that's step one. Step two, the Indian connection there and Native American, to see whether there's something that, will add when we do rankings, would add a lot,
Mhm.
that there's something.
Was this
historical.
property ranked before? Sorry to interrupt, but
We didn't rank it.
No, we do not.
No,
yeah, because this is about the time I started my interest in the land trust. I think I listened to a couple of the calls discussing Black Rock, but I don't, that was year plus.
No,
ago.
I think that we were, again, it's drawing back on COVID, but I think we did some preliminary research on the property and that was where we ended up at.
We didn't get any response back from the owners.
Right, that was,
There was
okay.
multiple tries. I believe you had sent a couple letters and
Yeah, so, the only option that I had, I didn't have a phone number, so I sent a letter
To
to
the-
the address on file and, put my phone number on there. Nobody ever called me at the time.
Yeah, so that's why I was really wondering whether,
Yeah, where's
There's-
this drive coming from, or the?
are they really truly interested, or was it, something that, it's a piece of property that people think that we should acquire, which is great,
Yeah.
but, we can't.
Well, the description is Director McGee described it in his email, was like, hey, we want to put up a fence and build a sidewalk to it, and we can bring the kids from the local school there to tell the history. But to that feels more like a park aspect than maybe a land trust, but
yeah.
part of the land trust, right, is preserving historical or cultural places of interest, right? And I think falls into this,
Well, I
but
can-
scoring it would be
Right,
tough.
it would come into to potential our mission. I mean, it's on the other things on our scoring sheet, it's gonna have a hard time.
Yeah.
right.
So that's why the historical aspect would have to take something that we really have to weigh in
that
and
would
say
carry
this
some weight.
would have to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
add extra points on that to make the score, but
But if the owners aren't responding to our queries, that indicates to me that they're not interested in having us acquire it, right?
I have to go back to Director McGee's email and see if he had a contact for the owner and just try to maybe start that conversation.
It was something about a conversation with the wife and dedicating a plaque or something there and,
Yeah.
almost like a trade,
Yeah.
so maybe there's something even for that, if it becomes a memorial site, in some way.
Oh, can you take this home?
You can keep that, yes.
Okay.
I have another paper that made. This is another event that we had, but somebody saves old newspapers.
mhm,
Oh, wow.
Is that the gang?
that's
Yeah.
the gang.
Yeah, I got a couple copies of those.
Yeah, I have a copy of this.
You can hang on to it, Joyce, if you want it.
Okay.
All right, so
This
on,
one?
on the Black Rock, I just guess just to close it out, we'll make an effort to reach to the, I'm gonna mispronounce this, Tomaquag Museum, Tomaquag.
Well, first we'll make sure that the property is.
They're
available.
interested and available. So I'll make outreach to Director McGee and see if we can get direct contact with the owner. I'll take a quick look at the scoring sheet and just make a rough estimate to see if it would even start to fall in, even if it was,
Mhm.
+5 for historical significance. And then, yeah, maybe we'll start the outreach
Mhm.
then. And if that doesn't come to fruition, then maybe the response to Director McGee is, say, maybe Parks and Recs might be interested for its historical value or supposed cultural value. I think it has maybe more industrial era type history associated with the green dam and whatnot that's listed in this paper. And I think some of the other things I saw.
It might fit in with one of our sign grants, we could offer to put a sign there without buying it. that would, show an interest for it, but not get us into a purchase.
All right, very good. So that closes out old business. On to new business. We're talking about ways to streamline the bidding process. I think it's just, looking at where have we run into hiccups in property acquisition. We talked a little bit earlier about finances being a hiccup. Can we afford the appraisals that we want to do? And then just time to get a bid in. I think, right, as an example, the Kavanaugh property has been a good year to get a bid in. I just know that has some technical challenges to it. But would it be valuable to, contract or build a contract with an appraisal service to say, we want to do 3 properties a year. You want to charge us for that? And then they're ready and available to go. I had some conversations with Mr. Studley this week, and it's not necessary that it would save time and or money, I guess, is the way that we kind of hash it out. I don't know if you want to add any more commentary there, John.
So I'll just say, on the onset, I'm not saying that that anything is certainly possible, and if this is something that the land trust wants to pursue, I can look into avenues and how to do that and try to do it in the proper way. It's just with conversations that I've had, there are potential hurdles with this sort of system that I just feel we should bring to light before we make any decisions. So the first thought that we had was, if we attach ourselves to one person, we may not necessarily be saving time because we're bound by their schedule. So part of the bidding process and choosing somebody isn't necessarily picking the lowest bid. It's cost, what that person will deliver to us, and scheduling also plays a role in that. If we pick somebody at the beginning of the year, we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months and what their scheduling will look like at the time. Another thing that Josh and I had talked about potentially is if we commit to say 2 or 3 appraisals, and we commit that money, and those appraisals don't end up panning out, or we don't have any property acquisitions at the time, that money is allocated towards one vendor, and it's tied up. We can't use it for anything else. So those were just a few things that we thought of that it's great thinking about ways to streamline the process. Those were just some potential hurdles that I foresee that might become a problem for the land trust, and I figured I would share those with you to get other people's thoughts and see if I don't want to get down this road thinking that we're doing something good and tie us up later.
Right.
Yeah. No, it definitely has the potential to backfire, right? Maybe there's no properties that come up and we've contracted someone.
Right.
And I can agree as well with like the scheduling constraints. Just in my other life, right? Scheduling production slots, and then those are committed. And I think an appraiser would be committed and maybe not available even if we have a contract with them. Or it would result in some onerous kind of contract discussions to make sure that we would be able to be on tap. I don't know if there's other members that have comments, thoughts, other ways we can look at streamlining our processes here.
To me, that committing to a single appraiser would open us up for looking like we are showing some kind of favoritism to somebody, and looking like some kind of, not necessarily above board situation, even if that could exist. I just feel like that might be a concern.
Sure.
I think the initial step that Josh was thinking of here is pre-qualifying the appraisal companies and having them still would have to submit to the bid process and go through the qualification. So, and then it's like anything, you do this with legal services. A lot of times in a corporation, you reach out and you get you get your bids and you qualify them and then you bring them on for 3 years. It's not like a permanent deal. It would be appraisal services for, 1 year for the, whatever. So I think that's what Josh was intent. I think what John brought up are viable points though, because if we get tied in with an appraisal firm that's extremely busy and we're trying to move something and we want to give them a 30-day deadline, and they say, hey, we can't, all of that would have had to be spelled out in a contract, which may be too complicated for us. I think we're a little frustrated at the process of how long it takes things for government to do versus if we were just doing this on our own, we could go out and hire an appraiser and get things a lot faster. So I understand and totally agree with the need for speed because we will potentially or might potentially lose properties because we don't have an appraisal in and all this stuff that we that's the challenge that we're facing. But John made great points. I think we proceed the way we're going right now, and we're learning a lot on the bid process. And once we get a few of these bidding companies now, when it goes time to go out for the next appraisal bid, at least we know that we've got some people we can, also reach out to them to say, make sure that they're notified that we're looking for appraisals, especially in the technical one that we have to do with the Kavanaugh. So
Right, and I'll just add to that, kind of echo that. It does seem easier this second round.
yeah,
Because I already kind of know
Yeah.
who to go to, or even if that specific person I'm not reaching out to can provide services, I've gotten a lot of recommendations. So I think as time goes on, I'll have a list that will be easily accessible and we'll kind of have that rapport moving forward. So.
All right. So to answer the item of ways to streamline the bidding process, it's keep John's Southern house.
Building network.
Sounds like you're already making progress on it. Thank you, John.
I mean, it's something that if anybody has any ideas in the future, certainly come forward with those ideas. It's just as far as a contracted bid thing, those were just a few of the ideas that I had for that specific idea. But there could be other ideas out there too that we're just not thinking of.
And this year, as we all know, and for the past year, it's been a very difficult time because so many houses are moving so fast. These appraisers are tied up by banks left and right as people are moving property. We should be getting a huge transfer tax influx
Yes.
this year with all the sales that are going on and moving a property. So I think in a normal year, if we ever get back to anything called normal, things won't be quite, these appraisers will be looking, for a lot more work than what, and so when we go out and looking for people, we'll probably get results faster, hey, I want to,
Yeah, there's progress that will happen, we'll say organically as things calm down,
Right,
which I think is
because
happening.
right now, because they are so busy. I think at least if I were in that headspace, right now they're looking at, okay, this bank is hiring me, I'm gonna get paid at the end of the day versus me asking them, could you put a bid in and maybe we'll hire you?
Right.
They're gonna go for the shirt.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough time for us.
No, so appreciate your work in getting all these in and improving the process as it is so far. So, but yeah, I think that kind of closes out that item. Thought I had one more thought on appraisals, but that was pretty good. So thank you. All right, on to section 8, ongoing property management related discussions. We'll start with drones, 8.1.
I followed up with Mark. He's gonna put together like a little vignette of what he did on land trust days and then take a look at it and we'll see if we want to use it, how we want to use it, and he'll come up with a price for it. And he's willing to do like drone footage of all of our trails, so. But he's just been very busy. He works for the Blackstone, Blackstone River. He does Netflix and he does the sports, the ESPN stuff, so he's been a little busy.
Okay.
But he's a good drone pilot.
Any kind of estimate on pricing? Again, just kind of back to that.
He keeps saying he's gonna do right by us. Do you know what I mean? I know, he's a nice guy. He's a very nice guy.
There you go.
He's a man of faith, so he wants to do right by us. So, and I keep telling him we're poor.
Right.
Land rich but cash poor.
Yep. What he likes the
Story.
mission of the land
Yeah.
trust, and he had a great time. He stayed longer than I thought he was going to, because he had a wedding that day too, but he had a great time.
Awesome.
So I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep him around.
Yeah, I have some pictures of him with his drone, you
Yeah,
know, on my
yeah.
phone.
It was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to, thank you, Rory.
Yep.
We'll go on to 8.2 boundary markers and the installation of boundary markers. So I don't know what we want to cover here. I know in,
As soon as the tree, leaves are off the tree, we want to do that trestle trail on the Bowden property and start there. So I think at our next meeting, we can schedule, a day, a work party day to start
Mhm.
that progress, because I think that was one of the things we wanted to.
do we want to schedule something now and then just kind of confirm at our November one, or want to wait?
Why don't we wait, because things will change between now and then. I'm thinking sometime, and I know December's are busy. But November is still iffy if all these leaf, are gonna be off, and then we got Thanksgiving, so maybe early December, but. And then, be one of those things like a Sunday morning for maybe like 2 hours or whatever, just go down and do the start, just see how hard it is, what tools we need, it'll be a trial run, really.
Yeah.
Trying to do the easy stuff, so.
I can take some of them. I don't know if everyone has seen the signs, but I can take some of them and try to do a trial run, because there is some experimentation that
Yeah.
would be required. And I think it was under this topic that Dennis was asking for the, what do I want to say here, the perimeter plan or the plat map that kind of highlights where all the
Where they're
markers
gonna
are,
go, right.
right? So I got this example from the planning department of Heritage Estates, or the, Sullivan property. And it has like all of the iron rods or the stone heaps and those things. And I think those are areas we'd like to put a marker on, just to kind of, those are the property boundaries.
The other
right?
thing that we should do on anything with the iron rods is get a GPS, an exact GPS coordinate on it, so we don't lose those things.
Mhm.
People have been known to pull those things up if they don't like the boundary lines.
yeah.
But locking them in, for us to find, instead of having to take the metal detector out. So that's good that, the Bowden property is obviously one that I don't know that's where we wanted to stop, but it was calling for bounds, and whether it shows iron rods or whatever, but that was, so that's what we need. We need to have those things. And if we can find our corners that's a big start, and keeping those corners, boundaries, whether it's a pile of stones or an iron rod or a stake in a stone, mark, so we don't lose them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They
And I think
can
in the
be
last
moved.
meeting, sorry, go ahead, Joyce.
It can be moved,
Yeah.
the,
The heap of stones, I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe over time.
Yeah.
But so I guess in preparation, then I think in the last meeting I'd said I'd reach out to the Land Trust Council. I haven't done it, to get their GPS unit. I think that's accurate up to 5 or maybe 10 feet, a little bit better than the phones.
Yeah.
They have the maps online that we can access through your phone that kind of shows you the boundary, puts you on the map showing it. You can do the same with the town GIS. Put a GPS location on each one of these, put a marker on it, and then call it a day. So we'll work on getting these maps for the Trestle Trail property. So Nayland, Bowden, and then this is Sullivan. I don't know if we want to do the Grody Conservation Area as well. That's also land that we kind of.
I think our target should be right away, right to the Bowden.
Yep.
And start with that and this, since we've got a decent map already. Let's,
Mhm.
if we get these corners and at least get the stuff around the corners marked, then we can fill in from there. But, and I think the thing that we had discussed is height, visibility, so we probably need a little step ladder just to put them up. So if you put them down where some kid can reach them,
They're gonna see it, take them.
they're gonna take them and hang them in their bedroom. So, generally they're just out of hand reach of people.
That's a good fundraiser idea. Maybe we sell some signs. People can hang them in their bedroom. right?
T-shirts, we got
T-shirts.
t-shirts,
Yeah,
the
we got the
t-shirts,
t-shirts.
that's
We
right.
got the sign.
Mhm.
If we want them, come and buy them. Don't.
So
sell
if we
them,
can get the
please.
Bowden map, that for, so, and see what it calls for bounds.
Okay.
If it does actually, has stuff that's marked. will help. We know, the frontage along Trestle Trail is really easy to, and we said we'd be a little bit conservative and just mark inside. But that's what we need.
Okay, would you be able to acquire that kind of bounds map for the Bowden property that we have, similar to this guy for,
If there
If
was
one
one.
exists.
if one exists, yeah, yes.
So I can, Gail knows where every piece of paper is. So,
Yeah, well, they had a lot of perk tests on that property, so I don't know whether they got the master plan or not.
Okay,
For the price that we paid for it, I think they must have been pretty close to that master plan, so.
right, so we should probably be able to dig something up and I'll look into that and see what we come up with, and I'll email it.
I had asked for, and this is just general information for the land trust, or I'd asked for the archaeological survey or the information that had been, researched when the Trestle Trail went in, when the bike path went in, and, some of the maps and details are provided over there on the countertop over there that the planning department had pulled. And it's a lot of just survey information, maps, GIS stuff. I did receive a digital copy of kind of that archaeological survey of the Trestle Trail, and includes a lot of details around Comstock Farmstead and some of the other pieces that we are protecting within our space. So I think it'd be great to mark all the boundaries and let everyone know that it is, preserved area or conserved area. So if you have more questions on that, or you want to see that archaeological survey information, let me know. I can pass it on.
Is there anything in it that should go on the website, like any items of interest?
I think so. We'll have to review it because it's 300 pages. It's a lot.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of
Okay.
information. Yeah. All right. So boundary markers you covered. We'll talk about early December. I might take a tree screw or two and a sign and do a couple test attempts to see what it looks like and how to work it. All right. On to 8.3 kiosks. I don't know that we have anything to cover here outside of what to put in our kiosks, or we had talked in the last meeting about installing one off of Trestle Trail. I don't know if we had any luck with outreach on using.
No, I think what we need to do is, before we put one up, let's make sure we have something that we're gonna put in it, so we just don't have an empty board. So I think the one off of Trestle Trail sort of mimic sort of the one that's up at Ledge Road.
Yeah.
Except for the map would be, you are here, and going the other way as for, but I think we just put it right inside of our, where the fence line is there. We just put it right inside, so it's visible enough from Trestle Trail so that they know that is the actual entrance to the.
Okay.
And we'll just have to keep the brush and stuff down low right at the end, which is, when we do our trail maintenance, will be just part of our normal business there.
All right. Anything else to add for kiosks? I looked at the one at Sullivan property, still had the, kind of ad hoc map in there, so that was good. The one on Ledge Road looked good, didn't seem like anything was missing. They're holding up well, so that's good. And then I was out at Stella Hall. That one, is empty.
That
think
one
we
had
have-
regulations too, the
Okay.
Stella Hall, know this, that, and the other, and do this and that.
Well, that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Is there a list of regulations that we have for land trust land that we should include in those kiosks?
Those regulations were from the Parks and Rec Department.
Yeah, the rec department, that's where that came from. The ones we originally had at Stella Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, generic regulations include the, no fires, no overnight camping, and things like that, because Stella Hole obviously was an area where
Mhm.
people were going out and building little barn
Yeah.
fires and
And
probably camping overnight.
Out on the point,
On the point there,
Yeah.
so.
Sandy Point.
On to general trail system discussions. Any maintenance requirements that anyone's recognized or seen?
There were some trees down on like the yellow white trail, I forget which, on Bowden.
Out of Bowden?
Near Williams
Mhm.
Crossing
Mhm.
area, right? Yeah, one came right down on the path,
Okay.
And there were a couple others across here and there.
See if I can head out there for a little Sunday morning
Yeah,
chainsaw
but, you know,
moment.
a full tree, it would need probably a chainsaw,
Yep.
especially the one that goes the full length unless the root changes around it.
Mhm.
I'll give it a loop. Stella Hall, we talked about, again, I did kind of like a test run over there. I thought it looked good. I saw some evidence of those fires. They didn't look too recent, some of them maybe.
It's
Didn't
not
look
that
like there were any
large,
new,
you
didn't
know.
look like there were any new four-wheeler trails or anybody, you know, actively cruising out there. And I saw two different couples out there hiking. So even in its kind of like undeveloped state, it's drawing people in. So some were
Mhm.
kind of locals. They were very excited about it, happy. I kind of talked to them about what they'd like to see, you know. And they were like, oh, well, maybe advertising it will bring more people. So they're, you know, had some hesitancy there, but is what it is. And then the other couple was from like the Berkshires, and they were traveling in reverse leaf peeping style to come to Rhode Island because all the leaves had fallen. So I thought that was interesting as well. It was
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful day, and they're out there enjoying their anniversary, and they somehow found Stella Hall to wander around. So that
Oh.
was interesting.
Yeah.
But there is, I think, in a previous report, maybe John, you had mentioned like logging concerns over there. Maybe it was
That
Dennis had
was
mentioned it.
resolved.
That was, yeah, the
That was
town did
resolved.
that. They were
Okay.
taking.
That was
Town did
years
that.
ago.
Okay, that was multiple years ago. It's all set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there's a beaver dam that's over there.
Yeah,
Right. I don't know.
it's gone because of the cutting in. You know, it was all wooded and then the logs were cut. I guess the beaver was an aggravation to begin with.
Well, I think
Now
there's
that
some
it's
road
open.
flooding that they had to dismantle the dam.
Leave it to Beaver.
I mean, the dam looked intact to me. So if there was a beaver that was removed, there's another one that's back. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like groundhogs, right?
Yep.
You can't keep them out.
Well, it used to be just a little wooded, you know,
It's their pond.
walk path,
Exactly, yeah.
but then it got opened up. And the beaver was gone, I think. We've
Oh.
had beaver on Town Farm Road too. They don't
Oh, yeah,
last.
they don't last, I know.
There was one in 102 intersection with
Yes.
117. Yeah, they aren't liked.
No, they're cute as little buttons though.
Big trapping trade in beavers still,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
One
of our.
I guess I was
species
more
to
interested
protect.
because like that beaver dam seemed like it looked like there was like a cedar bog there. And the beaver dam was impinging it. And I don't know if it's within our purview to like manage that property more effectively for the habitat that exists. And should we take action against it? Was just a general question I had. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that or.
Well, often beaver ponds create habitat. So although change is part of nature, and so although having a beaver move in and create a dam and flood some areas is going to change the area, it may make it more hospitable for other creatures, and beaver dams do draw other.
Definitely, it improves
Wildlife.
habitat or increases
Yeah.
diversity when you have.
Right.
Well, it also creates problems to property owners that have damage that they have to contend with.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm saying on a refuge, if there's no you know, right? I mean, I'm not saying that we need to impinge on somebody's property, but just, you know, if we're managing a property and beavers move them, I don't think it's a problem. So,
I was thinking more in the context of niche habitats. And I think Atlantic cedar is like a threatened type of habitat. So similar to like meadows, right?
right.
There's fewer and fewer of them. And so if we observe or see that those are being damaged, should we take action? I don't know the answer, right? So that was just something I noted this past weekend, and I was going to follow up on like, hey, is there someone who studies this type of habitat that has a concern here or not? I think that's just a general, how do we
Protect wildlife habitat and the wildlife on it.
Yeah, well, not even that, just how do we outreach or partner with other, you know, scientific organizations that are doing research on the types of properties that we preserve or the animals that we're.
I think that's a good question for the Rhode Island Land Trust Council.
Yeah.
People,
Right.
Yeah.
because we're not the only property that has that situation,
Yeah.
Right.
and see what their recommended actions
Mhm.
are.
I know that there are
That's good.
folks at DEM
Okay, an email.
who, you know, I used to reach out to. I used to write the kids page for the Rhode Island Audubon Society, and so if I had a question about wildlife, there was somebody at DEM who I would reach out to. I suspect he's long retired, but, you know, so that might be the avenue to take.
Awesome. I will start with Kate. I owe her an email from the last session and a couple other things, so I'll follow up with her on that. Cleanup time frame. We talked about that for Earth Day. I don't know that we need to do any more kind of in-depth discussion on that, outside of just thinking about how to advertise and advocate for that. GIS mapping. I think I owe all of you kind of a demonstration of the GIS mapping tool, so I don't, maybe we can do that at one of these dates. If the walkthrough on 11/7 falls through, then maybe we can do something else on that date at a different property and check it out. I got a couple tentative tracks for GIS maps out on Stella Hall to hopefully get a map built in advance of next year and have something to review. And I'm still working on the one for the Sullivan property, so I haven't been able to connect with my GIS expert or SME that I know to kind of learn a little bit more and get myself up to speed there. Anybody really passionate and wants to get in on the GIS tool and start using it? We can wait until we do the signs and we can make points for each of them, take pictures. I think that'll be fun.
Envirothon could help with that.
Yep. they're probably very skilled.
Peter Stetson,
Mhm.
who has been, we did a program at the conservation conference at URI. And he was talking about that, you know. Good
Peter
project for
Stetson.
Envirothon. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, and we talked about tick awareness signs, and maybe again, under the financial auspices that we have, maybe it's not worth investing in signs versus putting up our own homemade ones. I don't know if anyone's got any ideas or want to throw something out there, or just leave it as is for now.
We can make homemade signs and laminate them, like I did for the pictures of the snakes and the scat and stuff. I mean, that would be easy to do. I can do that.
Maybe got a cute kid sign, you know, the tick, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Beware the tick.
Mhm.
All right, and then this last one, 845, I think this is you, Joyce.
Yes,
You're
the
talking about
invasive.
identifying or marking dangerous invasive plants.
Right.
So
And
what are you
the
thinking here?
bittersweet is toxic to dogs.
Oh, is it?
That's
good to
why I
know.
got out there
Yep.
after it, because of walking with my dog.
Yep.
You know, and I've cleared poison ivy with no trouble, carefully, you know, rolling it like yarn, but the bittersweet isn't that flexible. It's, you know, a sweeping branch that whipped at me here and there. So it is a dangerous invasive plant, depending on the size of the dog, I suppose, and how much exposure.
Right.
Sure.
Do we have bittersweet on any of our properties? Do you know? of any?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess in the context of the land trust though, so what would you like to do? Because I'm in favor of like invasive plant removal. I think there's
Right.
action to be taken. I just don't know how egregious it might be within land trust properties that we need to take action.
So I think what we do is just, as we do our walks, and this year we did Heritage, obviously, we're very familiar with Heritage. We specifically look for bittersweet, Japanese knotweed, the bittersweet, barberry,
Yeah.
things, you know, that we know, and then see if there's any other invasives and that are, you know, red flag right now, and let's take our notes with us and say, or if we see it,
Yeah.
you know, identify the location, snap a picture of it, and then find out what the proper remediation is to remove it. So I think just as we walk our properties, we part of our maintenance is also identifying.
Right.
So when we walk and we saw trees down, we should also keep in the back of our minds having a notepad with us, you know, and saying, oh, I found barberry, a patch of it, you know, quarter mile in, or, you know, 5 minutes walk in, so we can say, yeah, we've got it. We, you know.
Yeah.
The thing is, the American bittersweet isn't offensive and the birds do eat it. It's the Asian bittersweet that's the poisonous. So I don't know if they're that, one blooms in June, which is a distinguishing factor, but I
So-
don't know that they look different.
Yeah, so maybe the thing to do is a little research and see if
Mhm.
there is a difference that we can identify and then have some photo stuff that we can go and
Yeah, yeah,
so maybe that could be your project or the library is doing a little bit of
yeah,
research on invasives that we
Right.
should have in this area that we should be on the lookout, get some pictures and
uh-huh,
then share them with us before we go on our next work party.
And there's a good resource. This was something I did probably 10 years ago now, maybe even more, probably 15 years ago. It's New York, I think it's New York, New Jersey Trail Council. They had like an invasive plant species kind of like task force, and it still exists. It was run by some PhD candidate, and they were assembling teams, building teams of volunteers who would go and hike all of their properties. And they have hundreds and hundreds of miles of trails like throughout New York State and the New York, New Jersey
Uh-huh.
region. And they would go out and they would have a GPS tool and they're marking which plants they're seeing. Again, that was a huge undertaking. That is tons and tons of volunteers funded and
Right.
GIS work, GIS specialists assigned to it. But at least within their website, I think they have a lot of resources on what are the invasive plants of concern. And they had it 3 different levels of concern, like almost endemic, like it's everywhere. So like, don't really worry about it. Just let us know. And
Uh-huh.
then new ones. And then, hey, this is like what's on the horizon for invasive species, right? And they had both plants and insects. So like, the big one now is what, the spotted lanternfly or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's the next one that's popping up. Emerald ash borer, all those insects as well are challenged. But that might be a good website to start on, is New York, New Jersey Trail Council, and they had like an invasive plant task force. See if I can find some old emails on that.
Yeah, we don't want to take out the good stuff that looks bad,
Right.
like the bad.
Well, I think the other thing that I learned through that is when you do invasive species remediation is you need to be prepared to put something else there, right? Because if you just go and you rip the roots out, you've got disturbed soil, like it's very easy
Right.
for them to just
Yes, I
reestablish
still have roots
themselves.
to deal with, even though I clipped.
Yeah, so it's kind of that synergy of removal and then installation of native plants or the meadow, like what we
Yeah,
talked about in the
yeah.
other area.
Yeah. I did work with Trustham Pond, US Fish and Wildlife at one time. They were removing a lot of honeysuckle.
Yeah.
Because it had been used when the area was a sheep farm.
Sure.
And it was everywhere. And URI was working with them too. And they cleared out, we did it all by hand, kind of like post hole digging.
Yeah,
And-
Trustham Pond, I think, just installed like a native plant garden, so to like some sort of like exhibition space, and that's not the right word. But like test case of here's a native installation, native plant installation to be monitored and outreach and provide training and, show
Yeah.
people what it looks like.
They've also done a controlled burn, I think.
Yeah, when they removed the honeysuckle, there was Jack in the Pulpit.
There you
Jack
go.
in the Pulpit was right there growing in the area, but it had been blocked with all the honeysuckle that had become invasive. Yeah,
Lots of management,
yeah.
fun. And I think with Wild Plant, the Rhode Island Wild Plant Society, I think has other information on invasives and how to replace them and manage them.
Mhm.
Very good. Yeah, so let us know what you find out and how we can kind of incorporate it into future management plans.
Right.
And with that, unless there's any other topics you want to bring up that I think we've covered all of them. We'll go to approval of our proposed 22 meeting dates calendar.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
So, after we had sent this out, it came to light that, normally the town council schedules their meetings for Monday night. It turns out they didn't want to do the Monday night, February 14th, because. So
They had plans.
Potentially. So, they rescheduled their meeting that week to February the 15th, which presents a conflict with us, and they already have it scheduled. So, I worked with the town clerk to get us, some potential, dates that, don't have a conflict. So for the month of February, I have 2 dates here. We could either do Tuesday, the 8th, which is 1 week prior to the scheduled date, or we can do the following night, Wednesday, the 16th. I guess it just depends. Do you want to do it a week ahead of time, or the next night after. I don't know what works with everybody's schedule. And I suppose you guys can.
Wednesday, the
Work through that.
16th, I'll have a conflicted meeting, but
ski season, they're all, they're all possible.
And I also will say, I just would caution against waiting, just because everybody is
Yeah.
setting up their meetings right now, and I don't want
Right, get pushed.
more dates to get booked up.
I guess I'd lean towards the 8th,
Get it over with, let's do it early.
Eight.
Okay, eighth
Change
is
it to
fine.
the 8th.
yeah,
just,
the
and because I think it'll be a quick kind of action cycle of,
Yep.
of depending on what's going on and planning towards that April kind of date. That's kind of our first like event, and we'll see where we're at with properties, but yeah, I think February 8th, unless anyone's got
Nope.
conflict. Brother-in-law's birthday, but I don't think that presents a conflict, so.
Yeah, so I suppose you can approve the proposed 2022 meeting schedule with the added change that
February 8th.
for the month of February, you'll meet on the February 15th.
Okay,
So I guess I will entertain a motion to approve the 2022 meeting schedule as amended to include February 8th as our February meeting date.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
All opposed? None? All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
So then on to agenda item number 10, issues of interest for our November 16th agenda. Anyone have anything new to add?
Hopefully I'll have the drone footage, so we want to add that to settle.
Okay. Drone footage.
Yeah, because depending on how we're set up, he might do it remotely. With, I don't know if he's gonna do a YouTube or how he's gonna do it, but we might probably need access to figure that out. If I can find out how he's gonna set it up, John, I'll let you know, so you can let Cody know if we need to do something different.
and
Go
I'll
ahead.
present what I have so far. That's on the website.
I think the website, just on that topic, we can do in chunks, right? If we get a couple pieces, we can give it to Cody, update it, right? They're very simple, like, hey, let's cut out all this national info, you know, if you just want to streamline and edit it, we can do that. And I think I have a couple blurbs on the newer property acquisitions that maybe I can just give them to get them out there to say, hey, these are now protected. The items I have for November would be, I just got a letter from the Land Trust Council on our dues, our annual dues. So we can talk about that and submitting that to you, John, just to get approved and paid. What was the other issue that I had for November? Oh, I attended the training. There was a training on open meeting that the town manager held.
Oh, right.
I think for those of you who have been involved in town government and on different boards, it may not be worthwhile, but that, or maybe not, it's not that it's not worthwhile. It may be a rehash of things you already know on how to handle open meeting. Open meeting laws, adhering to that, conflict of interest, all those fun things. It was recorded, and I would just, ask that maybe you watch that recording or listen to it on a drive and make sure we're all kind of up to speed on what the town manager's expectations are.
Is it on the website?
I
Town
believe
manager?
it's on the website. If not, it's on the town YouTube channel. I
Yeah, so
imagine.
if you go on YouTube and type in Town of Coventry, it was recorded and it's uploaded to the town's YouTube site.
Okay.
Yeah, so just,
And it's-
watch that, check it out, and then if we'll put it on the agenda. If anyone has concerns, we can talk about anything at our next meeting.
It's called open meetings.
Yeah, it should be. one of the-
Training for councils or something, committees
Some-
maybe.
Something like
Okay.
that. It should be one of the first few meetings that happens.
Okay, perfect.
And just, so in that vein, right, part of it was like, how do you organize your meetings? And then what are your goals? And I think we've had a lot of conversation here, like, what are the goals of the land trust? How many properties do we want to be looking at? What are the things we want to do? So kind of just aligning what we want to work for. I know we're all volunteering our time, so are we spending our time doing the things that I think is keeping you guys all engaged in advancing the ideals of the land trust? So thank you for your time.
And the site walks can be open meetings, right? people we can have anyone come out with us. If we do,
The sidewalks
like
are,
the
They're
Capilano,
posted,
They're posted, right? Yeah.
yes.
yeah,
So they need the Secretary of
yeah,
State's
just like
guidelines,
our
yeah.
meetings are. Right, John has to take care of that for us, right?
I believe so.
Like the
yeah.
Capilano hike, we're gonna just leave that on as November 7th.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
still gonna get posted and then we'll cancel if, I'll reach out to him next week and see if what he's doing. If he doesn't want us to be interested, or if he's doing something else, then we're not
Cancel.
gonna waste our time.
Right,
watching.
And so out of that open meeting training, what I learned, right, that all of these meetings are due to have a public comment period. So you'll see that I added that into this agenda. And we're at the public comment section. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to make a comment, we've got one caller on there. I don't know if that's just Dennis listening to us talk. So
Hmm.
Yeah, so I will add there seems to be one caller. If you have a public comment, it appears that you're calling in rather than using some sort of app. I believe it's *9 if you want to raise your hand and you have a comment. So
there we go. All right. This is exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
In action.
Yeah.
In action. I love it.
We'll see if we can get through the technical aspects.
Oh, there he is, or there she is.
Are
they on mute?
That whoever's trying to call in.
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, all right. If you could just identify yourself to the land trust.
Yep, absolutely. This is Al Susi. We've been going back and forth through email. The guy that inquired about the geocaching.
Thank you for joining us.
You invited me to join in, so I figured I'd call in and see if anybody had any questions, issues that I could answer, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I heard your discussion earlier, so it sounded didn't sound like there's any objections, but if anybody has questions, yeah, I'm here to answer.
No, I appreciate both. I think your interest in the land trust and getting out there, getting the kids out there in the woods. So that's great. And I think, like I said in the email, let's connect and maybe we'll just go hike and check out where you want to stash them and how we can advertise it to the greater public. So thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you got my email. You get my. I think I throw my phone number in there. So yeah, absolutely. Whenever you have a chance, we'll try and connect.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you for
Sounds
calling in
good.
and listening. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Mhm.
Take care.
That's the first one of those we've had.
It
works.
Yes, that was awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So on to number 12, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?